You ever start coloring a page and suddenly feel like it has to be perfect? Yeah, same. Today I'm tackling that pressure while answering your questions about coloring, art supplies, and a little bit about me. So the first question I got is, when did you start coloring? I started coloring in 2015, but took a break after a while. In 2017, I created my Instagram account to share my colorings, but at the time I didn't think much of it. Then I discovered how big, kind and supportive the coloring community is, which really amazed me. However, between work and social life, I ended up stopping again. It wasn't until 2020, during the pandemic, that I picked it up again. Since then, I've tried to keep coloring, though there are still times when I don't color for weeks. At least the breaks aren't as long as before. Initially, I colored to relax, but now I'm not sure it's as relaxing as it used to be, because I feel like every coloring needs to be as good as the last one. That's actually why I started coloring in those bold and easy books. I haven't posted any finished pages because they're a different style and I'm not sure if people would be interested in seeing them. From time to time I do share them on my Instagram stories, since those disappear after 24 hours. Coloring in those cozy books with my markers really help reduce stress because it's just for me. If I pick the wrong color or the page doesn't turn out perfect, it doesn't matter, it's just about having fun. The next question is, what's your favorite pencil brand? I don't have one specific pencil brand that I always reach for because I love combining different brands. Wax-based and oil-based pencils each have their own strengths, so I use them for different things in my colorings. Prismacolor pencils are my go-to for blending and smoothing things out, while Polychromos pencils are great for building up light layers or adding tiny shadows, since their oil-based cores keep a sharp point much longer than wax-based pencils. I'm also a big fan of the Derwent Lightfast and Caran d'Ache Illuminance, and I'm currently saving up to buy Holbein pencils because the first 3 open stock pencils I own are just that good. For mid-range or budget-friendly options, I really like the Ardix and Woomer pencils. And for water-soluble pencils, my favorite is, I think, the Derwent Inktense because of their bright, intense colors. The third question is, how long does it take you to finish a coloring? I'm a slow colorist, so small vignettes usually take me a day or 2 to complete, while larger pages can take anywhere from a week to 2 months, but that's also because I don't color every day. My coloring pace really depends on my mood, energy levels, and how much time I have. I also love adding lots of details, blending layers, and experimenting with different techniques, which naturally makes the process slower, but I enjoy it that way. For me, coloring isn't about finishing as many pages as possible, but more about the experience of creating something I love. And now a quick thank you to the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. If you've been around here for a while, you know how much I love learning new creative things or improving my coloring skills. And that's exactly what Skillshare is all about. It's an online learning community with thousands of classes for creatives, hobbyists, and lifelong learners. They offer classes on a wide range of topics like art and illustration, animation, photography, graphic design, productivity, and so much more. Lately, instead of watching other YouTube videos during my morning coffee or while coloring, I've been watching some of these Skillshare classes by Chris Hong and Mimi Chow. And honestly, it's been so inspiring. I love that their lessons are bite-sized, so you can learn at your own pace. For example, Chris Hong, who by the way also has a big YouTube audience, has classes on Skillshare. I love that these artists offer beginner-friendly classes like steps to creating vivid portraits with colored pencils, but also more advanced ones like advanced color pencil techniques for creating colorful stylized portraits. And personally, I feel like I'm right at that point where I want to take things to the next level, so it's really inspiring to follow along with artists who push my skills further. I use these classes to get inspiration for color combinations, Like, I'm not going to draw a face and color it exactly like they do in the class, but I will try to remember things like you can use orange for highlights or purples for shadows, that you can build up layers gradually, or even add colors that aren't visible in the original photo, which, by the way, I'm doing right now in my coloring book. Even though the class isn't specifically about coloring books, there's still so much we can learn from it. So if you're in a creative rut or you just want to treat yourself to something fun and inspiring, Skillshare is such a great place to start. The first 500 people to use my link in the description or scan the QR code will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, so you can get started too. And now let's get back to the Q&A and coloring. The next question is, what are some coloring supplies that you highly recommend? Oh, I could talk about coloring supplies for hours, but I'm actually thinking of making a separate video dedicated to my favorite supplies and recommendations. I want to physically show the different tools I use so you can see how they work. It's a bit tricky to do that in this video without constantly interrupting my coloring. So I'd rather give them the attention they deserve in a proper recommendations video. So stay tuned for that. Question number 5. Do you like mixed media techniques? Yes, definitely. I think it's all over my channel. I love combining different art supplies in one coloring because each medium brings something unique to the table. For example, I often use watercolors or water-based markers as a base layer to quickly cover large areas. Then I go over everything with colored pencils to add depth and shading, and finally I like to add fine acrylic touches for the highlights since they sit beautifully on top of colored pencils. It's such a fun way to create different textures and effects. I've also experimented with thick acrylic markers and watercolor pencils, and I like using alcohol markers in those cute, cozy, bold and easy coloring books. I think that doing backgrounds with pastels or Neocolor too is next on my list to discover. Question 6. Do you mix different brands of pencils on one coloring page? Yes, I love mixing different pencil brands on one coloring page, depending on what the page needs. Wax-based pencils are great for blending and getting rid of the white tooth of the paper, while oil-based ones are perfect for layering or adding fine details. Not every coloring book works well with every pencil though. That's why I always test them on the blank test page first. Sometimes I plan to use my Prismacolor pencils, but then the paper doesn't cooperate, so I try other brands until I find the best match. It's all about experimenting and seeing, or better yet, feeling what works best. Another question that I get a lot is, have you studied art? No, not in the traditional sense. I didn't study fine art, drawing or painting, but I did study photography and later graphic design, which is always digital. So while it's not art in the classical sense, it's definitely artsy. We did have classes on things like color theory and art history, which definitely helped me in my coloring. So even though I never had formal training in traditional art, I guess you could say I've picked up a lot of useful knowledge along the way. The next question is, how often do you color? It really varies a lot. Some weeks I color several times, sometimes even daily. Other times I don't color at all. I get drained or overwhelmed quite easily, so I've learned that pacing myself is important. I try to color when I feel like it and not push myself. There's no strict routine. I color whenever I feel like it. Some weeks it's a little, some weeks it's a lot, and I think that's the best approach for me. And I'm actually curious to know this about you guys. How often do you color? Question 9. What's the reason you started coloring? It was kind of accidental. I discovered adult coloring books in a hobby shop in Belgium, and they immediately piqued my interest. So I picked up a book and some cheap pencils, then went online and realized that adult coloring was a whole world of its own. That's when I found out about Johanna Basford's books, and I got really into it. Honestly, it could have been any hobby, but coloring just happened to be the one I stumbled upon. Later, I learned that it's also great for mental health, which was a nice bonus. I enjoyed it so much that I started buying more books and better art supplies, quickly blaming my cheap pencils for why my coloring didn't turn out the way I wanted. And then the last coloring related question is, what are your favorite coloring book artists? This is an easy question. For me, that's Johanna Basford, Rita Berman and Kate Pellerin. Their styles really resonate with me and I love the illustrations they create. Johanna's whimsical detailed worlds, Rita's adorable and travel-inspired drawings, and Kate's delicate dreamy artwork all inspire me in different ways. But I buy books from a lot of artists, because even though I have my favorites, I have to admit there are so many good artists and coloring books out there that it's really hard to ignore. So those were all the coloring related questions, but I also got some non-coloring related questions so you can get to know me a little better. So the first question is, what's your job? And I got this question a lot. I'm a senior product designer specializing in designing mobile apps and sometimes websites. In my last role, I worked on a well-known dating app where I designed new features for the mobile experience. The design team was mostly based in the US with a smaller portion in Belgium, which was pretty cool since we're a small country. I worked remotely for the most part, but had the chance to visit their LA office once. Before that, I worked for design agencies where I got to collaborate with some amazing clients, including Tomorrowland, which is a huge Belgian festival. As you can probably tell, my day-to-day job is entirely digital, always behind a computer. I think that's why I'm so happy to have found coloring. It lets me step away from the screen and create something with my hands instead of through a mouse on a laptop. It's a completely different way of making things and I love that contrast. The next question I got is, what are your other hobbies? Actually, a lot of things. That's why it's hard to dedicate all my time to coloring. I love making puzzles, doing escape rooms, especially the horror thriller ones, playing board games with friends, and traveling. I used to enjoy cross-stitching, but it's been a while and my eyesight isn't great anymore for those tiny holes. I probably need better glasses. I also love watching a good series, listening to podcasts and reading books, though mostly in summer when I can sit in the sun. And when I feel more active, I enjoy indoor rock climbing and I'd like to try out Pilates. But sometimes I just like to unwind with friends over drinks or take a cozy bath with candles for some relaxing me time. The next question is, I like this one. Do you have any pets? Yes, we have a Furbaby, our cat Luna. I actually grew up with dogs and always thought I'd have one of my own, but my partner sadly wasn't on board with that idea. However, I was allowed to get a cat. At first I was really skeptical because I had never had a cat before and most of my past encounters didn't end well. Lots of biting and scratching. I never liked how unpredictable they seemed. One second they're sweet and the next they scratch you out of nowhere. But being an animal lover, I really wanted a pet when we bought our house. So we went to a shelter, looked at all the cats and one of them caught our eye. Her name at the shelter was Bella, which I liked, but we decided to rename her Luna. And honestly, she completely changed my mind about cats. She's so sweet and affectionate, never scratches us, listens surprisingly well, and isn't overly vocal. She's an absolute cutie and I'm so happy we adopted her. The poor thing has had some health issues though. My partner always said to me that a cat never reeks, but after a few weeks, Luna started to approach us because in the beginning she was very anxious and wouldn't come close. We had to be patient, so anyway, after a while, she came closer and I could smell her. And I remember thinking, didn't you say that cats never smell? I was so confused because I could clearly smell her, especially her breath. Turns out she wasn't grooming herself and we initially thought it was just the stress of moving to a new environment. But then after a while, of course, we took her to a vet and we found out that she has an autoimmune disease where her body actually rejects her teeth, causing infections. Luna had to undergo 2 operations to have all her teeth removed, and it was a long road to recovery, but thankfully she's been doing well for a few years now. She just needs her daily meds, which is manageable. And it's actually kind of cute that she doesn't have any teeth now. It's definitely a little quirky, but she's still just as sweet and adorable as ever. Sorry for the long talk about our cat and maybe too much information. As you can see, I'm a real animal lover and I want nothing but the best for her. I could talk about animals for hours. And then the next question are 2 in 1. Do you like to travel and where have you been? Yes, I love traveling. I've been to many European countries and cities, including London, Paris, Budapest, Berlin, Amsterdam, various other cities in the Netherlands, Spain, including Tenerife, Portugal, Italy, including Sicily, Germany, and Andorra. Of course, I've also explored a lot of places in my home country, Belgium, like Bruges, Brussels, Leuven, Hasselt, etc. Beyond Europe, I've traveled to Japan, New York, Los Angeles, and Egypt. I also try to visit Spain as frequently as possible, especially Mallorca and Malaga, since my father is from Spain. We have a lot of family there, so we try to visit as often as we can. I've also been on ski trips to France, Austria, and Andorra. Honestly, I've never really been to a place I didn't like, except for one all-inclusive resort in Spain, where there was nothing else to do and we didn't rent a car, so after a week it got a bit boring. I prefer a mix of relaxing at the pool or beach and exploring when I travel. At the top of my travel bucket list are Australia and New Zealand, the west coast of the US, like visiting the Grand Canyon, South Korea, South Africa or Kenya, and a Scandinavian country like Norway, Sweden, Finland or Denmark. So still plenty of adventures to look forward to. And that's it for the Q&A. I hope you enjoyed getting to know me a little better while watching me color. Let me know in the comments if any of my answers surprised you or if you have any fun questions for a future video. If you liked this, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more coloring content, and I'll see you in the next one. Happy coloring! Bye!